African slavery was a system of exploitation and oppression that involved the kidnapping, transportation, and forced labor of millions of Africans by Europeans and Americans for centuries. But how did African slavery even start? What were the causes and consequences of this brutal practice? African slavery started long before the European colonization of the Americas. Slavery was a common practice in many parts of Africa for centuries, as it was in other parts of the world. Some African societies enslaved people who were captured in wars, raids, or debt bondage. Other enslaved people were considered criminals, outcasts, or foreigners. Some slaves were used for domestic work, agriculture, mining, or trade. Others were sold to foreign traders, especially Arabs and Europeans, who transported them across the Sahara, the Indian Ocean, and the Atlantic Ocean. The transatlantic slave trade was the largest and most brutal forced migration in human history. Between the 15th and 19th centuries, an estimated 12.5 million Africans were shipped across the Atlantic to the Americas, where they were forced to work on plantations, mines, or urban areas. About 2 million of them died during the horrific journey known as the Middle Passage due to disease, starvation, violence, or suicide. The survivors faced a lifetime of exploitation, oppression, and dehumanization. The demand for African slaves was driven by the economic interests of European powers and American colonists. The discovery of the Americas and the expansion of European empires created a huge demand for labor and resources in the New World. African slaves were seen as a cheap and abundant source of labor that could be used to produce lucrative crops such as sugar, tobacco, cotton, and coffee. These crops were then exported to Europe and other markets, generating enormous profits for slave traders and plantation owners. The slave trade also enriched many African kingdoms and merchants who collaborated with Europeans in exchange for guns, cloth, alcohol, and other goods. The enslavement of Africans was justified by racist ideologies and religious doctrines. Europeans and Africans developed various theories and beliefs that portrayed Africans as inferior, savage, and destined to serve whites. They used pseudoscientific concepts such as racial classification, phrenology, and eugenics to support their claims of white supremacy and black inferiority. They also used biblical passages and religious arguments to rationalize their involvement in the slave trade and slavery. For example, some Christians claim that Africans were descendants of Ham, who was cursed by Noah for seeing his nakedness. Others argued that slavery was a divine institution that benefited both masters and slaves by civilizing them and saving their souls. The enslavement of Africans had devastating consequences for their culture, identity, and humanity. Africans who were enslaved lost their freedom, dignity, and rights as human beings. They were stripped of their names, languages, religions, customs, and family ties. They were subjected to brutal physical and psychological violence such as whipping, branding, mutilation, rape, torture, and murder. They were denied education, healthcare, legal protection, and political representation. They were forced to adopt the culture and religion of their oppressors or face punishment or death. They were also exposed to new diseases and environmental hazards that reduced their life expectancy and fertility. The enslavement of Africans sparked various forms of resistance and rebellion throughout history. Africans who were enslaved didn't accept their fate passively or willingly. They resisted their oppression in various ways, such as running away, sabotaging their work or tools, poisoning their masters or overseers, practicing their own culture or religion secretly, suing for their freedom in courts, or joining abolitionist movements. Some also organized or participated in armed revolts against their oppressors, such as the Stono Rebellion in 1739, the Haitian Revolution from 1791 to 1804, the Amistad Mutiny in 1839, or Nat Turner's Rebellion in 1831. The enslavement of Africans left a lasting legacy of racism and inequality in the world. The abolition of slavery didn't end the suffering or discrimination of Africans or their descendants. They continued to face legal, social, economic, and political barriers that limited their opportunities and rights as citizens. They also faced racial violence, segregation, and lynching. The legacy of slavery also affected the development and stability of Africa, which suffered from colonialism, exploitation, poverty, war, and disease. The effects of slavery are still evident today in the persistent racial disparities and tensions that exist in many countries and regions. Slavery is a violation of human rights and dignity that affects every country and region in the world. It is our responsibility to raise awareness, take action, and support the victims and survivors of slavery. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget to leave a comment down below and let us know what you think about this topic. See you next time, and bye for now.